Now, Nigeria's Labour Party's 2023 presidential candidate, Peter Obi, has recently asserted that Nigeria is not a democratic nation. Appearing on Arise's prime time, Obi emphasized that the fundamental principles of democracy government by the people, for the people, are absent in the current Nigerian political landscape. He further criticized the leadership, alleging that individuals with criminal records and forged credentials occupy significant governmental positions. Obi's remarks highlight ongoing concerns about Nigeria's democratic processes. The International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance reports that over the past 5 years, Nigeria has experienced declines in credible elections and effective governance. These insights underscore the challenges facing Nigeria's democratic institutions and the importance of addressing electoral integrity and governance issues to strengthen the nation's democracy. Joining us now to unpack Peter Obi's recent claims about the state of democracy in Nigeria is Dayo Shobowale. Good afternoon, Mr. Shobowale. Thank you for joining us. And so sorry for the challenges you had to face coming down here.
No, that's not for consumption.
Well, but let's talk about the comments by Peter Obi saying that Nigeria is not a democratic constitution. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what he has said is a generalization and it's a fallacy. You can say our democracy is sick. I go with that. There's no perfect democracy in the world. If you say that our electoral integrity is questionable because of rigged elections, I agree with him. But he's part of it too, because he has won elections. It's only when he has lost now that he's turning it into a sort of sour grapes. He's not the only person disgruntled with our democracy, but you have to live with it. Yesterday I was mentioning our father, Papa Olusegun Obasanjo, saying that he's frustrated and that our democracy is democracy of the few, by the few, over a large majority. So, see, there's nobody happy in the world, here I see, even with democracy. And that is why you have those who will disintegrate the concept and ideology of democracy, waiting on the wings. That's China, one-party state, and the USSR. One is tempted to say that they are the people instigating this aggression, verbal, that is, against the concept of democracy. But see, democracy is a game of numbers. See, the majority wins, first past the post. That's the parliamentary democracy. In presidential democracy, the winner takes all. The winner takes all. So let's get the idea and concept of democracy right. That the principles, the ideal is there, but nobody is following it. But then, the one-party state scenario, the dictatorial democracies, they will tell you that their idea of democracy is the real democracy. Because at the end of the day, they control their people, there's no opposition, no aggression. They send them to school, and they put food on the table. So Obi can say whatever he likes. Most people will agree with him. But then, it was part of the last election. You see, people have said all over the world that the post-pandemic inflation all over the world made some governments to lose re-election. Trump just won. In Britain, the Conservatives lost. But some countries, the ruling party won the election in spite of the inflation. And the inflation, you can't separate the inflation from the ruling party in a democracy because you put them there. And if there's inflation and people cannot make ends meet, they will blame the people in charge. So what he's doing is criticizing the government of the day. But he cannot wash himself off it like Pontius Pilate because he has always been part of it. Let's leave it at that for now.
Great assessment. What you mentioned, democracy is a game of numbers, and we need to get our democracy right. You also said it would be all right if we said our democracy is sick. But when you mentioned that the dictatorial aspect that some might be practicing, it made me wonder if you're willing to share what your own specific metrics to evaluate if Nigeria is truly practicing democracy might be.
Let me be abundantly clear.
Okay.
We are practicing democracy.
What are the metrics besides holding elections?
No, we have democratic institutions in place. We don't have one man rule. We have presidential system of government, the system of checks and balances, separation of powers, and we vote every 4 years. Do you get me? So people are already getting ready for 2027. Those are the indices of democracy. Obi is part and parcel of it. He can be disgruntled with it, and he has not very long because he lost the election. But Obasanjo is out of power. But he's always vigilant over the conduct of our democracy.
Okay, may I rephrase, Mr. Chekwa? Okay,
right.
You've outlined all these elements that you mentioned,
Yeah,
but you also stated
democracy.
that, yes, you also stated earlier that it's okay to say that democracy is relatively sick. So if we're going to practice democracy that is not sick, that is well, what would you include in the metrics of our ideal democracy for the Nigerian context?
That's right. Integrity, honesty, transparency, accountability. But you know, they're always lacking.
Yes.
That's the theory. I'm a practical pragmatist. That's what I'm telling you. That's why I said it is sick. I won't say you don't have democracy. All the indices right there. If you don't have democracy, we will be like our brothers in Niger, Mali. They are banned political parties. You can't discuss like this there. But Obi is venting his views in public against the government of the day, and he goes home to sleep. So let's thank God for little mercies. That is a democracy. But don't forget too, like people stretch human rights too far. You see, human rights is your freedom ends where my nose begins. And you see, the only true democracy is in utopia, not on this earth. You get me? So people are balancing things and making democracy work. You remember at the US last election, Joe Biden said his opponent is an enemy of democracy, a threat to democracy. But the threat to democracy won at the electoral dump or death.
All right.
Democracy is a matter of choice.
We thank you for your contribution this
right.
afternoon, Mr. Obi Arise News analyst.
Romance between the Labour Party and the New Nigeria People's Party. The rumoured merger between both parties has stalled. The candidate of the New Nigeria Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, over the weekend stated he can't be a running mate to the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi, also saying that the South East will miss a golden opportunity if Peter Obi refuses to be his running mate. The NNPP candidate also added that the Igbos are at the bottom in politics. Reacting to the remarks by the NNPP presidential candidate, Buba Galadima highlighted that Peter Obi's best bet is to accept to be Kwakwaso's running mate and that the Labour Party candidate is suited to be vice president because of his experience in economic issues. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss the alliance between both parties and his take on recent remarks from the presidential candidate of the NNPP is Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, and good morning for inviting me.
So let's start off with those comments from Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso, presidential flag bearer of the NNPP. He said several things, including the fact that the North will not vote for you, Peter Obi, that they would rather vote for a northern candidate. He also talked about the fact that the Southeast has problems, in quotes, such that the North will not be voting for a person from the Southeast. What's your take on that?
Well, the comments from my respected elder brother, Kwankwaso, is the reason why we have 100 million Nigerians living in poverty. The reason why we have 18 million Nigerian children out of school. It is the reason why we have over 55% of Nigerians under unemployment ladder. It's the reason why we have all the problems, why Nigeria is insecure. Because rather than vote for competence, we will choose to vote for incompetence based on a primitive consideration of ethnicity and religion. Tell me, today you can't travel from Abuja to Kaduna by air, by road, by train. Is it because somebody from the Southeast is in charge? You can't travel from Abuja to Minna by road. Is it because somebody from the Southeast is in charge? Yesterday we had an attack by bandits on the presidential convoy in Katsina. Is it because the president from Southeast is in charge? Show me where you can buy food cheaper, you have uninterrupted electricity, or people are prospering in the north because the northerners are in power, in the southwest because they're in power, and in the southeast. What we've chosen to do in this country, we will consistently hire vehicle drivers to fly the Nigerian aeroplane instead of hiring qualified pilots. My commitment is let us campaign and deal with the issue of the problems of the country. There's a lot of problems besieging this country. If you don't know today, this country will soon default in their debt service. Now we'll be rated junk status. That's what should be preoccupying us now. Our schools, universities are shut down, and we're talking about who will vote for, let's deal with the issues. This election will not be based on my turn. It will not be based on ethnicity. It will not be based on religion. It will be based on the Nigerian agenda to save this Nigeria. Nigeria is in coma. I need a specialist. And that is what I'm offering. To save his life or he will die. It is not about whether this person... I'm appealing to people to vote to save Nigeria. And to save Nigeria is to hire the best. I don't want people to vote for me because I'm from the Southeast. I don't want people to vote for me because I'm from South-South, or I'm from Southwest, or Northwest, or Northeast, or North Central. I want them to vote for Peter Obi because he's a Nigerian who is competent to start pulling Nigeria out of the mess it is today.
He also said that, the Igbos are on the lower ladder of Nigerian politics. I mean, we keep hearing that word. In fact, when we had the spokesperson of the NNPP, somebody that did speak on behalf of the NNPP yesterday, I think a couple of days ago, if my memory serves me right, that's Alhaji Buba Galadima, he equally enunciated, those views that, it must be the Igbos that, it's on Monday. Yeah, thank you so much. That the Igbos should be the one to be vice presidential candidate. So tell us about everything about this, NNPP partnership and everything. Is it still working or is it dead on arrival?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the alliance because maybe some people are talking about alliance, but I want to look at their comments. Often a time, you see, you work here. Often a time we tend to neglect those on the lower ladder. They might be the solution. They might be the solution. And those comments are comments that should not be on the table today. Because we have a problem. My candidacy is actually meant to solve those problems, to stop referring those who are higher ladder. Because, okay, those who are higher ladder have brought us where we are. Maybe we need those on the lower ladder to be able to deal with it. And that's what, even his comment, let me take about Alhaji Babagadima's comment, which you said. He said, I am competent to be the vice president because of my knowledge of the economy. Let me tell you, Nigerian problem is the economy. So why do you want somebody who has knowledge of what the problem is to be vice? Use the people who should be on reserve bank to start the match when? No. He mentioned that I have the knowledge. The Nigerian problem is the economy. It is the economy because people don't have job, because people don't have means of livelihood, you push them into criminality, into agitation, into all sorts of problems we're facing today. And that is what I'm saying, that I have the knowledge to start pulling these people out of poverty. My candidacy and the team I want to assemble, young, sharp people will start mitigating the dangers we're facing today. I will start dealing with cutting costs in order to be able to pull Nigerians out of poverty, to be able to reduce. Go and look at it. So it is actually what is telling you what Babagadiman said. I would say is Peter Obi is qualified to be vice president. Everybody have said it, not just Buba Galadima. You've heard other people like Chief Servant in Niger said it. Everybody said it. He's competent. But what is the problem of Nigeria? Economic problem.
Right, so I know you're raring to get to the issues, but unfortunately identity politics is still an issue in this country. So I do also have to raise comments made by Alhaji Mahdi Shehu, chairman of the Dialogue Group, on another show on the Arise News Network, where he said that during your time as governor of Anambra, you wanted northerners working in Anambra to wear a badge of identification. Frankly, that sounds like something out of Nazi Germany, where Jews had to wear a yellow badge, and that it was only until the intervention of Senator Rabiu Kwakwanso that you then backed down from that idea. He also raised this issue that was trending on social media, an allegation that your son was the person pictured who was dressed in Biafran attire standing on the Nigerian flag. I'd like you to address those two issues.
Well, I will even add the dimension issue of my sponsoring IPOB. Let me tell you, I've said it. One, go and check the records and check his facts. I've never been involved in sponsoring any agitation, be it IPOB or anyone. I've never. In 2017, which I'm sure you referred, I made a comment. I said, IPOB and all other agitations are as a result of leadership failure over the years that failed to address the critical areas of development. So it was the creation of the things were a creation of government. And I can say today that if I'm in power, I will deal decisively with all agitations through dialogue and through proper leadership. And when I finish that, if there are remnants of criminality in it, I deal with it decisively. That's what is happening everywhere. I followed issue of agitations globally. I do things with studies, and it can be dealt with. On issue of badge and identification, it's a lie. It never happened. And let me tell you, throughout the time I was governor, Kwankwaso never visited me. I can't remember. In fact, I probably haven't met Kwankwaso until maybe, I don't know, there are people I met maybe after I became governor or not close to him. You know, it's somebody that I see as a senior brother, respect me, but he never visited me as a governor or intervened on anything. And to tell you why it's a lie, all the commissioners that sat with me throughout the time I was in office are from the north. I never had the privilege of having any commissioner from southwest, south. They are all from the north. I can show you 6 of them. From John Haruna to Nazaba. Most of them, if I told them I'm from Kanu, my ADC, Mohammed, is from Kanu. So who will I give the order? Will I give them an order to go and deal with their own people? No, every other person calls his brother, his sister, or his mother. Listen, to be his ADC. My ADC is from Kanu, and we remain close to today. Very, very close. You can go and ask him. I'm not somebody who asks that. On the issue of my son, it is not my son. My son is a professional who is consumed by his... Yeah, let me tell you, I just came back from London. I can't even see my son. He's consumed by her work. He will tell me that, listen, Dad, I like, oh, how are you? How is politicized your campaign? I like what you're doing. Do you know I can exchange my messages with my son? My son will tell you, listen, Dad, I don't have time for this. I did this and this. I've stayed in a week in New York. I could not see my son because he was busy doing what he's doing. Okay. So he doesn't have time for that. That thing happened in Germany. My son doesn't live in Germany. He lives in the UK. Okay. And he's consumed by his work. Okay. And I want Alaji, I can tell him, I'll bet any amount for anybody to prove or say that is my son. He's shorter. He's listen, you know, so.
Okay. So let's go to some key issues. Social media was agog yesterday that you had a vice presidential candidate already, you know, OBIDatti, Baba Ahmed. I mean, what's your take on that? What's your take on vice presidential candidates? And also, I'd like to ask you, since you're speaking about the issues, you were in Morocco at some point, you were in Egypt, you say you're going to study the power sector. A lot of people are saying, why don't you talk to the stakeholders here? That shows that you're not prepared for this job when you're going around to study.
Okay, well, two things. The issue of vice presidential candidates, we're talking to quite a number of people. And, you know, that they mentioned is very qualified. I wish he's the one, you know, because what am I trying to do? It's people like him that I actually would like to work with. One, I wish I can work with somebody who is much younger, because we need to start lowering these barriers of this and bring people, younger people with fresh ideas, with have something to offer, than just keep recycling this ourselves and claiming we have been there too for several times, or is our turn, or is that no, we need to start dealing with. So that we're talking to, and we will announce it as soon as we're ready, and which will be very soon. On issue,
so are you confirming? You're confirming that you're speaking to Datti and other aspirants?
There's quite a number of people. And
Datti might be the person because he's...
Look at what I said. I said I wish he's the one. He's qualified.
Okay, you wish he's the one. Yes. So you have a soft spot for him.
Yeah, of course, and a few others, you know. I want somebody who is competent. We need to. I said I'm building a team.
Okay.
I'm building a team. That team has to be a team that is formidable, a team that cannot take, even from me as president, anything. I want to assemble the type of team I had in Anambra State, and I said to them from day one, if you agree with me in 3 meetings, you go. That means you don't have your own idea. I want those who can look at my face and say, Mr. President, you're wrong. And you're wrong. Because I don't know everything.
And
I want to learn.
Deal for you.
Eh?
That Datti Baba.
Oh, yes, of course. If I want people that can come in there and say to me, like, oh, you're wrong, you can't do this. Because that's what we need. We need to save this country. And you can only do that with the team. On the issue of my traveling, let me tell you, leadership and learning is inseparable. If they tell you somebody is doing something well, you go and learn. What are they doing? What are they not doing? And that has taken me, from the time I've started this experiment or getting involved in politics, I've been to 31 countries. Morocco, just to show you, Morocco is about 36 million. Their export last year was over $50 billion. They don't know spend on oil. In our own, with oil included, it's under 30 billion, and we're 200 million. Morocco didn't export any oil. But if the natural resources was small, it was mainly manufactured goods. Vehicle alone was almost 10 billion. In Morocco, Morocco runs the best airport, seaport in Africa, doing twice the tonnage, cargo tonnage of all Nigerian ports put together. Morocco. So I have to go there. Morocco is doing so well that today, Morocco issues bond, Euro bond, at 2-3%. Nobody can, today in Nigeria, people are skeptical about buying Nigerian bond, even at 14-15%. So a differential of about 10-13%. Morocco. I had to go and see what they're doing. I drove from Rabat, the capital, to the port in 3.5 hours. No police, nothing. Straight road, got to the port. You wouldn't even know. You think there's nothing happening in the port. I was there. They viewed the people and everything. That's why I went there. To know what they're doing that we're not doing. You learn. I went to Egypt. Egypt, Vietnam, India deploy the highest, fastest electricity in the past 5 years. And I said, let me start with Egypt. I'm going to go to the other ones. Egypt moved their power generation distribution from less than 20,000 in 2015 to today, 58,000. Those who are asking don't know what happened. That's what they did. You need to go and see what they were able to do. Today, Egypt's power requirement is 30,000 megawatts. Their generation and distribution is 58,000. I want to study who did the plant, who are the contractors, how did they get the funding. I've been able to ascertain. I visited the plants, went to the company that built it, met with the CEOs, not the small people, the CEOs of the companies that are involved, went to the power holding company of Egypt, met the top people in government who are involved in this, talked a bit with the financiers in Egypt. I've also gone to Europe to meet the financiers. Refine. What you see here is that people go into government and start giving excuses. What I saw when I came in, I want to see everything now, calculate the sources on which I'm going to solve it. So when I go there, I hit the ground running. That's what I did in Anambra State.
People are saying, have you talked to the local
I'm talking to the stakeholders.
And what are they telling you about the power sector here?
The same, based on what they told me is why I'm studying this. That's why I'm going to. I don't want to come there and they said, fine, I don't want to go there and start giving excuses. The job of a leader is not to give excuses, it's to solve a problem. I don't want to be one of those who will be hired, and when I go there, I start reminding them of where they're coming from. When you're hired because the person there is not doing well. So your job is
after talking to the local people here, that's when you went to Egypt to look for solutions?
Completely.
And the local people here didn't provide any solutions?
No. They have you have to blend all these ideas. They've done their own and everything. Let me give you an issue of security. I was with the IG of police the other day. I went and asked him this, but I was asking him, because you must solve this thing. There's other people I'm going to talk to, Minister of Finance, Minister of Planning. You have to know all this before you get in there. Not when you go in there, say what you saw. You must see everything before you get there.
So I want to take you back to how you talk to the local people here. Yeah. Tell us why. Because in Egypt, they have the same agreement, don't they, with Siemens, as we have here, Siemens Presidential Initiative in 3 phases, upgrade of our transmission grids, discos, new power stations. It simply has not worked here thus far. Why?
Because we're not serious. Period. It needs to go away. Let me tell you, in Egypt, to conceive a power plant from beginning to end, to say, we're going to, you are Rascom, you are Siemens, we're going to combine, you're going to build this power plant, all the things they need to do lasted 45 days. In Egypt, they put power, security of life and property, education, health, and power as a national security issue. Very simple, because they found out that one of the things that contributed to riots of 2011, 2012, when they did Arab Springs, was power. Small businesses did not have power, so they collapsed. And they contributed to that, and people were unemployed. And that was a problem. So they looked at education, that children, people, education, all those issues were bundled, and they put it at national. and they're dealing with it decisively. So if you go to Egypt and see what they're doing in education, in health, in security, and everything, if you the issue of the power thing, if you go to the power holding company, on the wall of the CEO, chairman of power holding company, you see all the generations, all of it, all the distribution, utilization. The day I was there, the entire utilization was 27.8 thousand megawatts. Total generation was 52,000. So they have almost double that amount. They're not utilizing. If you go to the same thing, the minister, the same thing, in the president, there's organization. So here, we don't have that. It's all stories. They've told me meetings upon meetings. That's why I said I must learn. Why is this not happening? Let me know whether we are cost. Why are we the cost? That's what I went to do, and that's what I'm studying everywhere.
So that's what I can't be told. You have to actually see it there, observe it, experience it, and
completely. That's why I went to the port. Why would Morocco, with 36 million people, have a tonnage to have a better port than we have with 200 million people?
Let's talk subsidies. In the last 10 years, subsidies has got over 40 billion. It's a sinking pipe. What would you do about subsidies? Would you remove subsidies? What's the definitive answer?
Well, thank you. I was going to mention that we have spent over $40 billion in subsidy. Fine. Our total education expenditure in the past 10 years, total education expenditure in the past, in fact, 12 years, is about 8 trillion. So in 10 years, about 8 trillion. 8 trillion is about 20, let me use 400. It's about $20 billion. Tell me, Rufai, which country of the world, the most two critical engine of development is health and education. And your expenditure in health and education in the past 10 years is about $20 billion. Go and check the records. And you spent 40 in subsidy.
$40 billion.
40 billion subsidy. Rufai, to even add, this is 50% of it. If we had spent the next 20 billion in power, we would have been generating and distributing today 20,000 megawatts.
We have spent 16 billion or 16 trillion thereabout in the other days. They keep using that 16 billion.
For me,
yeah.
I don't want to deal with the issue of the past. That's what they said about adjustment. But I'm saying in the past 10 years, and I'm talking about 2010 or 2012 to 2022. Within this period, this is what we have spent in subsidy alone. Yeah. That means subsidy alone would have solved a lot of our issues in education, in health, and in power. If we have 20,000 megawatts of electricity today, I can assure you that we'll be growing at more than 4% and would have added over $100 billion in our GDP. So what it is that this is just subsidy. Within the same period, as you know, we've borrowed $90 billion. So subsidy of 40, you borrowed about $90 billion, which you're servicing. If you put the debt servicing, you could see a total mismanagement of resources that would have changed the entire north. That vast land would have been a huge farmland.
But sorry to cut you in. The argument has always been over the years. It is Labour that has been stopping the government from removing subsidy. Remember 2012 Occupy Nigeria protest, Labour. And now you are in a party set up by the Labour Party, and you're a free market capitalist in a party called Labour Party. So Labour has also played a role in stopping the removal of subsidy. All this while. That's another argument.
No, let me tell you the argument. Let me tell you, it's people, it is not entirely so. Labour has never been against stopping of subsidy.
Can you convince Labour?
No, let me tell you, we will do it properly. Because, Rufai, if you audit what we are importing and consuming, there's no way we'll be this amount. And you have to convince people. Let me tell you why people are against the removal of subsidy. People are against the removal of anything because whenever it's been done, they did not see the benefit. We did privatization. We didn't see the benefit. What we did is that we privatized profits, socialized losses. We did everything we've done. We did other things here that have been done everywhere. If you say you're going to remove this, what are we getting here? The problem you have in Nigeria is that they've removed this, nobody got anything here. So we it in such a way that it will be transparent. This is the amount of our importation. This is the amount we are going to spend. And if we reduce it or do this, this is what you are going to get. And you deliver that, people will believe you. I've been able to return schools in Anambra State or do things that when I was doing it, people say, no, you cannot do it. Have you go and watch what my former head of service wrote? Stinginess as a strategy of development. He showed how I cut the cost of everything and showed what I used it to do. You must not come and say, we're going to remove this. What are we going to get as a remove? Because of mistrust. Because the whole thing had been embedded in transaction and stealing of, so people don't want to hear it. But you cannot spend that amount of subsidy when your health, education, and pulling people out of poverty suffering.
So you remove subsidy?
Well, like I said, everything has to be, if this is going to happen, this is the result.
Would you remove subsidy?
We have to look at it critically.
Would you remove subsidy?
Remember what I said? Yes and no. We have to study. I will remove it, but I have to offer them what would be equivalent of what we are removing.
So your answer on subsidy is yes and no?
Yes, yes.
No. Would you remove subsidy?
Yes, but because I'm going to use the resources to do something that will benefit. But if I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to remove it.
Okay.
You must be able to offer something in replacement of what you're trying to do. I cannot spend $40 billion on subsidy and spend 50% of that in education and health. Even in security, where our security budget have not been up to that. And you're saying that subsidy is more important than security of life and property. These are things you must do. You must be able to say, if we keep this, we will not get this. If we keep this, we will not get this. But because of mistrust, I will say that subsidy is a scam. And I still maintain it. So we have to look at it. How much are we importing? Who is consuming it? Why are we going to keep this? And there's so many scams all over the place, including the cost of governance. We're going to look at it. It's not going to be a business as usual. I'm going, and that is why people are telling you, oh, it's good at the economy, it's not good at this, it's not that good, because they know that if I'm at the #1 position, I'll be able to say, no, you can't continue with this. So they want a situation where it will continue, but let Peter be here. If I'm qualified to be vice president, I'm qualified to be president.
Okay.
On that note, we'll take a short break. Please stay with us. We'll be back with more with Peter Obi. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us is presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi. Thank you for staying with us, Mr. Obi. So before the break, we were talking about your field trips, is how I'll call them, because that's an integral part of education. You don't just get education in the classroom, you go on field trips. So you went to Egypt, you went to Morocco, and you were talking about what you observed there. You mentioned the ports. How will what you studied over there impact us here, should you emerge as Nigeria's president? We have underutilized the blue economy quite clearly. How will you address issues of bottlenecks at the ports, bottlenecks on the roads, infrastructure around the ports, cargo turnaround, issues like that?
Well, I've been a businessman. I remain a businessman. So I know the enormous cost on businesses and trades because of the bottlenecks at the ports. And I can tell you, this will be decisively addressed, not only just to remove the bottlenecks, but to make ports to become what it should be. Nigeria have what it takes for our ports to contribute at least 3-4 times what it's contributing today to our revenue because of our size, and we can have ports for turnaround, for transshipment, import. The deepest part of the ocean is Port Harcourt area. And it's at the tip. That can use for transshipment. There's a lot you can do with the ports. After what is Singapore that we pride ourselves and talk about every day, living on, is the ports. That port today is doing business and generating and managing over $200 billion in assets. That's what we need to do. We need to, open up the economy of the place. Make it productive. Like I said, the vast land in the north should be farmlands, while Kanu and Kaduna should be a processing center where we're moving goods for export. These are what I've done. These are what I'm going to do. If you drive from Rabat to the seaport in Tangier in Morocco, all you see is farmland. If you're on the air, landing on anywhere, all you see is farmland. In Nigeria, you see vast land and people who are looking for food. This These people can be moved from here to here by supporting them, by having critical policies that will help. If you generate power, you will know what power can do to an economy is immeasurable. You have small businesses spring up all over, small production that can help. When we talk about all these countries who are doing well now, go and see MSMEs are contributing 60-70% of both their economy and employment everywhere in the world, except here because they are collapsed. Nobody's supporting them. They don't have the power. Even the big corporations, they're having problems now with the issue of power. So we're not doing anything. We're not exporting enough. Because of it today, we don't have foreign exchange even to service our debts. There's no reason why Nigeria should not be exporting at least 300 billion worth of exports, not under 30 billion. I said it before, Vietnam, with a quarter of our land, 330,000 square kilometers of land, half of our population, 100 million people, their total export last year was $312 billion. And they're all manufactured goods. Electronics is something billion. Clothing, which we're doing in our band everywhere, 32 billion. Footwear, 23 billion. And we're earning 16 billion from oil. Footwear that you can do everywhere. In China, in Kanu. Kanu used to be a manufacturing center. All the manufacturers in Kanu are complaining. I visited the biggest rice farm processing plant in Kanu last year, Unza, because I had to support it. And that's what I'm talking about when people are talking about east or west or this. I visited Unza. We are supporting him financially, and he's doing the right thing. That's what we should be talking about. Not talking about who is from a lower ladder or upper ladder. If the man from lower ladder will do the job, let's bring him to do the job so we can solve these problems. Okay. And that's what we need.
We've been having the port problem. We've not been able to solve it. What specifically would you do to make turnaround time in port about 24 hours? They just put in an app called ATO. We can't still solve the problem. Specifically, the first 3 steps. And secondly, when are we going to see your manifesto?
Let me tell you. Let me start with the issue of my manifesto. We're going to see it. Refine. Britain today operates on written constitution. Let all these glossy things people write. Let's look at the man who is saying this and who is writing all this. I can hire professors in university and they write something that I don't even believe, that doesn't even make meaning to me. I'm saying, go and look at my records, whatever I've told you. I've experimented in private sector, in public sector, so there's a reference to what I'm saying I will do. When it comes to the issue of ports that you said, I said I'm a trader. I know the enormous cost. If you borrow money today, refine, and say you're going to do importation from UK to Nigeria, you borrow money, say, okay, Nigeria, if you're you borrow money at 20%. If you're very lucky, let's say you borrow 10 million naira, so you're going to pay 2 million at the end of 1 year. You start to do importation. First is that you will not find the dollar. If you find it, you import goods, you pay for it, and then from UK, it takes 2 weeks to come to Nigeria. It takes you 3 months to clear a Nigerian port.
So what will you do to change that?
So you are paying interest for 3 months on your 2 million for nothing. You can change it. You clear goods in Cotonou in 2 days. I'm just putting it, even do it in 1 day. You do it in Ghana, do it in Ivory Coast. I've been involved with the port. I've actually been a part of probing the port. I've actually traveled because of the port to Singapore and everything. I've studied what works.
So what would you do to make it like Ghana and Cotonou, specifically?
Very simple.
Yes.
It's a human factor.
Okay.
And you deal with it. It's a human factor. Quote me anywhere. It has nothing. What they do there is not different from what we do here. All we need to do is a human. I tell people what we did in education in Anambra State. And why do I want to use it as an example? We moved from 26 to 21. We didn't change the teachers. It was the same teachers. We didn't. No, we didn't hire new people. We didn't do anything. It was the same people. But when they saw the body language of this leader, what he wants, and people were being asked to go if you don't deliver it, they delivered it. Everything you're seeing in Nigeria has not worked, whether it's scanning, whether it's human factor. You deal with it decisively.
But people say it might be easy in Anambra, but it might not be easy as Nigeria as a whole. It's a bigger country.
It will be the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Quote me anywhere. I've been involved in the banking industry. Go and check. We took the smallest bank and became 25 billion bank. I was the chairman. You can go and check the record. I've been a successful businessman. In Anambra State, let me tell you, Anambra is very difficult. It's the most difficult state to govern in this country, if you don't know. So it is, we will beg people, we will plead with people, we will dialogue with people. We're not going to shoot them, we're not going to do this. Where I ask, you could see me every day begging, appealing, and we'll do it, but we'll be decisive because it must work. We want this to become an engine of production. What has changed countries is production. Go and check even in Europe. The Spanish people were enjoying and selling their gold when Netherlands was busy investing in production. Today, Spain is a problem. Netherlands is doing well. A country with 33,000 square kilometers of land and far less population. Total export last year was $650 billion. And must get this place to work.
So what I'm hearing here, the recurring theme, is that a lot of our failings so far are due to human behavior, whether it's political will or just generally how we conduct ourselves. Which leads me to my question about some of your supporters who attack, vilify people who don't agree with you or support you. How do you address that more militant end of your supporters that obviously have contributed to what's been described as the Peter Obi phenomenon, but some people find it off-putting?
Well, let me tell you, I don't agree entirely. Some of those people you're hearing, or who have defined people, are not my supporters. There are people who have been paid by my opponents to infiltrate my supporters and do wrong. And then they say it's Peter Obi's supporters. I'm telling you, some of them. And today, people are being paid. In fact, what they say and do to me is far more than what they do to any company. People are being paid to say all sorts of things about Obi, labeling him is incompetent, labeling him whatever it is. It's just like it's the issue of my son. My son, for example, like I said, is a hard-working young man. Since he left the university, he never asked me for £1. He will tell you, I'll earn the money. I have always cared about Nigeria. He will always tell me, say, listen, if I tell my son now, I'm going to buy you this, he say, listen, sir, listen, daddy, you have a lot of people you're supporting in Nigeria. I can support myself. Support them. I'm dad. If you say this thing, I have a lot of my friends. Let me tell you, my last discussion with my son. He said, a lot of my friends wants to go back to Nigeria. But they have fear about this. Is there any way, if you have opportunity, you can make it better for all of us to come back? We want to come back. He was born, raised in the UK, went to school, is working, and he feels for the Nigerian child every day. As you know, my daughter had to even come back and start teaching in a secondary school here. So that's where they feel. They feel, what can we do to help? If I say to any of them, I'm going to say, take the money, you have people you're paying for. Why don't you support this school? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? I saw you giving computers to school. Keep doing that and everything. They are so passionate about, why don't we do good? Why don't we do this? So for me, I don't have people, and that's why most of the time you even see me, apologizing and doing this. If they even say to me, you have to stop apologizing, I said, listen, this is me. I want to show people love when they show hatred. When you say people in the north, for example, will not vote for me, they are voting for me is that I'm going to solve their problem. I want people in the east to vote for people based on their competence, not vote for Peter because he's from the east.
Okay. Real quickly, so I got a couple of questions here while you were speaking, and we'll just go through some of them. Yeah. A lot of people say you keep talking about Anambra, but did you hold local government elections where you were in Anambra? How did you hold the local government money? They're also asking that why are you not in Osun now campaigning for the candidates of your party in Osun State? And they are also saying we should ask you that would you restructure Nigeria, yes or no? Those three questions.
Okay, fine. Local government election. Go, fine, I'm giving you a mandate. Go to Anambra State and see why local government election was not held when I was there. Those who went to court against it are those who are asking you this question. Two, who asked how their money was managed. It's simple. Just, I'm going to bring journalists, investigative journalists, who will go. And if they tell you that there's anywhere Peter Obi was managing local government funds and everything, well, in fact, it was one of the most efficient managed funds while I was there. Because that's how we cleared $35 billion naira worth of pension and gratuities being owed to them. My commissioner for local government was Azoke Nemo. We had asked anybody. He's one of the toughest women you can work with on the surface of the earth. When she says no, you can't even, no. And this is my senior. Will even tell me, please, my young brother, please, I don't want to see you in this thing. I'm in charge here. and she's not a politician. I met her as a head of local government office. I had meeting with local government people over a period of time. When my first commissioner was to pay my birthday with a friend and a brother who did the right work. This woman, I met her whenever I go to meetings. She's one. I said, Madam, come and do this job. And that's how I met people. My commissioner for health was because doctors went on strike. I went to a hospital. I saw a doctor walking. And I said, he said, I can't leave my patients. Never. Doctors are not supposed to go on strike. I said, you'll be the commissioner. He said, he will never be. I went back and announced his name. So was that okay anymore? I didn't bring people. So go and verify. That's whatever I tell people. I said, go and verify where Peter was. So that was the issue. The last issue you mentioned, why am I not in Osun? When is a state election? You are invited. Yesterday, I came back yesterday. I spoke to the Labour chairman who told me we'll be in Osun. I won't tell you that because of the security risk. But we're going to be in Osun campaign. And I'm in contact with we're in contact with candidates. Yes or no? Comes in? Thank you. When you talk about the issue of restructure, when I get there, I've said it, Nigeria as it is structured today cannot work. But it's not something where people say, we'll restructure. Let's get there. There's issues. For example, let me take issue of security. Why won't the state be in charge of their security? These are part of things people are talking security.
So you bring in state police once you get there? If you get there?
First is that the governor should be in charge of the security. So even if a police commissioner is posted there, the governor is in charge and can remove him. I removed 6 police commissioners right from the time of Obasanjo. My police commissioner was removed under Obasanjo. I went to Obasanjo and said, Mr. President, I have a security issue. I want this police commissioner here to be removed. He called the then IG, Hindero. I said, so who do you want? I said, I want the deputy to be the commissioner. Hindero said, no, he cannot. I said, unless he will be acting. I said, call him anything, but let him be in charge. That's how John Haruna took over.
So that's fiscal federalism, so you promote that?
Of course, yes, because it will help. You do it in security, in education. Why wouldn't I hold the governor of Katsina responsible for the security? One is that our police personnel level is unacceptable. We should have at least today twice what they are today.
That's 800,000.
No, today we are 320,000.
So that's about 600.
So about 600. Egypt with 1 million, with 100 million people have over 1 million. I've studied it in Morocco, everywhere. So you don't have, and out of these 320, I can tell you about 70,000 are following people all over the place.
Okay, sir. I want to raise another issue from the interview yesterday, on a Rise interview with Mahdi Shehu. He raised this issue of former President Olusegun Obasanjo selling your candidacy to the North, and also mentioned an alliance with Ango Abdullahi of the Northern Elders Forum. Is there any truth to this?
I don't know about that, but what is wrong in Obasanjo selling my candidacy? They are even selling my own candidacy. I've said it, MPP spokesperson, both the presidential candidate and the spokesperson, my senior brother, Baba Grandima, all said in PDP, the Niger chief servant, and Senator Dino, none of them have said Peter is not qualified. They are saying that Peter is competent to deal with the economy. But I'm saying we have an economic problem. So you don't need somebody to be on top of me when I can solve the problem. And that is what I'm offering. That's why I said I'm contesting to be the president of Nigeria. I might be coming from a section of the country, but I want to solve the problem of Nigeria. I want to start building a new Nigeria where Nigerians can be proud of their country, believe in their country and everything. A young man approached me yesterday. I came back from the UK yesterday. He will shock you. A young man approached me. He said, I saw everybody taking picture with you. And I asked him, who are you? He said, you are the president. You're going to be the president. I said, yes. He said, let me tell you, I'm 20 years old. My mother is from Nigeria. My father is from Jamaica. My mother is so nice to me. I want to come to Nigeria. I want to be able to set up a business, employ people. I help them. But just like what my son would tell me, so many of my friends don't want to come because they feel it's not this, it's not that. I said, that's what we're trying to do. When we arrived at the airport here, I saw that same young man being interrogated by immigration, this one. Even not normal, trying to harass him, I called them and said, let me tell you, this young man is coming to this country for the first time. He believes in this country. That's why he's coming. By the time people finish with him here, he will go out. He will not come back. So they left him. He came and hugged me and gave me and says, I know I can't vote for you, but I don't know what I'm going to do to help you. Can I collect your number? I gave him my number. He gave me his number. He said because of me, we need to do things that will bring people hope. We need Nigerians to be proud that they are part of this country. We need to go to sports and compete as the Nigerians. People are not proud to say we are Nigerians. Canadians are hiring Nigerians every day. Other countries are hiring them. They are not asking them whether you're from the east or west. Listen, when you go to a doctor, I've been to one, I've said it, I've never been sick. One time they said I would remove a procedure in the UK. I went to St. Mary's and Elizabeth Hospital. As I enter a theater, two people appear. They are black. One is from Ondo. The other one is from Southeast. They were doctors. I didn't have to say you can't operate me because of this. So many prominent Nigerians are seeing the same thing. Nigerians from the Southeast are all working in Saudi Arabia. Nobody's asking them where they're from. Even Dubai, we go to celebrate. It's a Muslim country. We all want to go there. If you go there, the only Catholic church, St. Mary's Catholic Church, is built by the Emir of Dubai. He's written there. Okay. I met him there once. He goes there 3 times a year, during Christmas, during Easter. Okay. So why are we here basing issues on his religion, his ethnicity, his my turn? We want to remove all this. Okay. I want it to be turn of Nigerians. Okay. Turn of the Nigerian children, turn of Nigerian youth to take back their country, and I'll help them to rebuild it.
You went to see Governor Wike before he traveled. What did you discuss with him? Was it politics? Was there another alliance? And you just came back from the UK. What was the trip like? What did you go do?
I went to see Governor Wike because he's the governor of a state that is strategic and important to the future of what I say. And I'm happy they're suing the ports. The ports in Port Harcourt can help to decongest the port in Lagos and help to what I want to do with the ports. We must generate appropriate revenue than we're presenting today. And I went to see him. I didn't go to see him to be another gang up or association and everything. And Governor Wike, notwithstanding anything, have been very close, very cordial and everything. Everything I've invited him. Don't forget, this year I went to commission things for him and everything. I have so many things that we're friends. In one of those, we even supported me when I was governor. He gave me the Ministry of Education when he was there. I had issues with teachers, with this, because of my position. He came, he supported me with the UBEC money, with everything. So I'm going to visit every governor in Nigeria, though, to plead with them to understand. We must build a better Nigeria. Nigeria is at the brink now. Like I said, in a short while, we will not be able to service our debts. That's what we should be discussing. When we don't service our debts in the next trench, the risk to junk status will be finished. You see our dollar now, every day, no dollar anywhere, except the ones they're sharing, which it must stop.
Rufai also asked about your trip to London.
Well, all my trip these days, you can ask, I came back with Pat for Tommy. You can ask him the type of people I'm meeting. Rufai, this is time for me to meet all those that can help. Not when I go into office and I start looking for them. I'm talking to people that can help us to find the funding, find the support, to be able to turn around the situation we're in. Like I said, I gave a reference of people, somebody you can call, who have an idea, the type of people I'm talking. And and you can see how my trip is. It's one day. I was in London only on Monday. I arrived in London Sunday, finished my meeting on Monday, left the same Monday night. So it was a business meeting, talking to people. I have a lot of other people I'm going to see in Europe and everywhere, talking, how are you going to help us? So when I have the opportunity to assemble this team of new Nigeria, a Nigerian movement that everybody will be proud of, it can start.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Peter Obi, for your time and for detailing what you want to do for Nigerians. And I'm sure a lot of Nigerians have watched it out there and they've taken note of all you have said today.
He's been described as a wealthy capitalist and an establishment figure who became the avatar for political disruption and change in Nigeria after joining the union-backed Labour Party. And Peter Obi almost pulled it off in 2023 when, in a tremendous burst of energy and passion, he went from being regarded as an implausible candidate to very possibly the next president of Nigeria. But in the end, he came short. But now, after wallowing in the agony of defeat, he seems poised to return to the hustings and to make a comeback, insisting that the ruling APC party, under the presidential leadership of Bola Tinubu, remains uninspiring and has failed to deliver the dividends of economic relief, social stability and democracy. So, with 2 years to go before Nigerians take another big ride on the political train, 2 years until the politicians are at war once again over the soul of this country. How complicated is the path to victory for Peter Obi in 2027? Does he have the ingenuity, and perhaps more importantly in the Nigerian context, the resources to pull the lever and effectively challenge the incumbency of President Tinubu? Can he once again muster the charisma, competence and credibility to instill in Nigerians, along with his zealous, obedient movement, the same sense of bright hope that almost determines the electoral outcome in his favor in 2023? Or will it just be cheap shots galore and nothing to show for it in 2027? I'll be joined imminently and exclusively by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general election, Mr. Peter Obi. I'm Charles Anyagulu, and this is Arise Primetime. So, as the fight for the ultimate political prize looms once again, and Peter Obi prepares for another assault at the next presidential election, how does he intend to invigorate Nigeria's ethno-political trident to seal his electoral fate and beatify him in 2027? Well, if you ask his many obedient supporters, they'll insist that he's still the one of Nigeria's top politicians who continues to captivate sincerely without a hint of insincerity. They say there are no false emotions and no wasted words, nothing but a carefully nuanced argument in favor of the Nigerian people and against a system that continues to stifle the majority. And recently, that argument has been lampooning not only what they say is the government's dismal record on job creation and poverty alleviation, but also its disastrous democratic credentials, which they say is increasingly defined by a rising tide of authoritarianism, with any previous adherence to the Constitution and the rule of law seemingly now in retreat. Just look at what's happening in Rivers State, they say. But beyond the words and what President Tinubu's aides call cheap shots galore, will Nigerians take notice in 2027? Or has the aura and the youth energy that surrounded Peter Obi in 2023 now faded away? Has that dream deferred become a dream that's died? And Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, joins me now exclusively in the Rise studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for Charles.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the end of the holy month of Ramadan for Muslim people, of course, who've been fasting for a whole month and are now celebrating at the end of it. So a period of special significance for Islam with lots of spiritual reflection. I wonder what your message is to Muslims at this auspicious time for them.
Well, like I said in my tweets, first is that they've been able, after the fasting and everything, been able to reflect about our country. It is now time to say, where do we go from here? And as I wish them happy Salah, I hope we'll use whatever they've been able to reflect in the past 30 days to hope that we'll build a better Nigeria.
And as you talk pointedly there about reflection, let's reflect on the 2 years into President Tinubu's term, what is known as the midterm. As we look into what he's been doing for the last 2 years, how would you assess his midterm?
Well, Charles, you know, I always don't want to be involved in assessing this present government, because I've always remained consistent that he is doing well. Because what he promised the people is exactly what he's doing. That he will start and continue from where the previous government stopped. And that is doing well, Charles. You can go and use every measure. I've said it in this studio before. Somebody who made dollar at 300 and something, 400, is now 1,005. Charles is done fantastic. Same in fuel, same in everything, same in unemployment, you know, everywhere. In terms of democracy, in terms of everything, is in on the sliding side. And that is doing well, because that's what he promised.
Well, I suspect they're likely to disagree with you. I mean, the president's team have suggested that his reforms are working and that his management prudence is bringing back international confidence. They say that growth may be slow, but it's on an upward curve, and that Nigeria's fiscal position has improved considerably, which is the precursor to investing in infrastructure and innovation such as technology. But you don't agree with that assessment?
Charles, when you talk about improvement, there are not things you say. There are things people feel. There are things people see. There are things that, it's just like when you talk about, I've listened to people say jobs are being created. Where are the jobs? You know, if you talk about job creation anywhere in the world, you see the figures. If you talk about improvement in education, you will see it. Improvement in health, improvement in this. If you say the government is now doing the right thing, the democratic, the this, you will see it. You just mentioned River State. So where is it? So we can see it. It's not a question of going to say, oh, investors are coming back. Where are the investors? Where are they investing? Companies are closing down. They're leaving. Local companies, manufacturing is going south. So where is it?
Clearly, you're not seeing it.
Nigerians are not seeing it.
Are you possibly, as they say, missing the beat of the moment? His aides are suggesting that perhaps you're focusing too much on playing the opposition card and you're not seeing the increments that are gradually, you know, making themselves felt in this country.
Charles, the Nigerians are not seeing it. I am one politician that moves around in Nigeria, and I know the feeling of the people.
Yeah, but what about prices in the market? I mean, there have been some, maybe not enormous reductions, but there have been some significant reductions, even in fuel, for example, petrol prices. I mean,
where did we start?
They've fluctuated
Charles,
a little, but they've come down.
Charles, where did we start? We started at about 200 to over 1,000, and now it's slightly below 1,000. You have to look at where we started. You didn't just say, oh, it's coming down. No, where did we start? What has changed? Consider the income of the average Nigerian. Those who are fortunate to have a job. What it now tells them if they're buying fuel.
So basically, your prognosis, your assessment, just to be clear, is that things have got worse, not better, in spite of the reforms that the president has put in. I mean, you're not agreeing that obviously reforms take a while to begin to be felt in the country. The removal of fuel subsidy, the regularization of price of cost of naira and all the rest of it. I mean, you don't think that those things are reforms that needed to be done? Wouldn't you have done that if you were president?
Charles, I believe that reforms take time for people to start seeing the gains of it.
Well, that's what their argument is.
But people have to see a clear roadmap that what they are sacrificing for, let's take fuel subsidy, which they say there's huge savings. Where is the savings being challenged?
Well, they said, for example, and I'm not a spokesman for the government, but I have to play the devil's advocate because they're not here. I mean, they said that, for instance, more money is being given to the states. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, the amount of money that the states are getting, I mean, it's higher than it used to be. Although some are making the argument, and I suspect you're making the same argument, that because of the devaluation of the naira, what they're getting is not worth anything.
Charles, if you are making a savings, you said, I want to save this money to be able to invest where? You have to invest in critical areas of development. And those critical areas of development are education, health, and pulling people out of poverty. Are we investing in it? Just no.
Well, they would argue that they're investing in education. They're providing funds and loans for students, which has never happened in this country before, to allow them to be able to go to school.
This country has universal basic education. And we have over 20 million children out of school. That is the critical area. It is the basic education that is the critical area. We're not doing anything in it. Just today, I visited an IDP camp. There's over 40,000 people in IDP camps around Abuja. I'm not talking outside Abuja. The one I visited is in Abuja. With over 4,000, they don't have a primary health care.
4,000 or 40,000?
Over 4,000.
Right.
40,000 around Abuja. But 4,000 in this particular facility.
Right, okay.
They don't have a primary health care. They don't have a primary school. They used to have a primary school, which was there by UNICEF. It's closed down for the past 3 years. The kids are there. There's no primary school. There's no health care. So if you don't have that in Abuja, where do you have it? Where? And this is the one you said is free. Free and compulsory. So where are you investing the money?
So your conclusion then is that there isn't a clear plan and a trajectory, that it's kind of all over the place.
That is convincing. Because you have said, I'm removing this, you have to sacrifice, you have to suffer. Where are you investing it? It has to be clear. It has to be verifiable. It has to be visible. People have to see it. They have to feel it.
Right. Let me move away slightly from the economy, because you have suggested that President Tinubu's political decisions and counter decisions are both a cause for concern and a potential threat to Nigeria's democracy. Broadly, tell us more.
Well, I've said it and I maintain, Charles, there's no democracy in Nigeria today. Nigeria today is not a democratic country. Let's stop telling ourselves lies. If you look at all the tenets, look at all the yardstick of measuring democracy, it doesn't exist here. Simple definition, democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. Today, the government we have is not of the people. It's not by the people because the people didn't vote. It wasn't their votes. I'm not just talking about presidency. Across the line, look at what happened in Edo. Can you call that democracy? It is not vote of the people. And it's not for the people. I've just told you that I went to an IDP camp where we have thousands of people, no primary health care. They were begging me to have one nurse, which I said I must make sure. I mean, they don't even have primary school, which again I told them, I will make sure it happens. So what are you doing? For a country that just spent 21 billion naira to renovate the house for the vice president, which is not, hasn't packed in, is not living there. And you cannot even have a primary school for kids who are going to be leaders of Nigeria tomorrow. For people who pass through the same process, to deny these kids this opportunity today. So it is not a democratic country. So it's not for the people. You can't have a democracy without a functional and effective legislature, which you know we don't have today. You can't have a democracy without, again, an independent judiciary that fights for the common person. I can go on and on. In a democracy, it is clear. There's guidelines. Even when you set for people vying for election, like in Nigerian case, you have to talk about people must be qualified. They must have primary school, secondary school, university, and must attain certain age. Charles, that is not happening today. People are with unverified, forged certificates all over the place, criminal records and everything, and they're in charge. So you cannot say that. It is, yes, maybe we're striving to be a democratic country, but where we are today is not. Look at what happened in Rivers that you mentioned. Can you call that democracy?
I'm going to come to Rivers State in a minute, because it would obviously require some analysis and certainly your assessment of what is going on there. But they would argue, the president's aides, that Nigeria may be a faltering democracy, but nevertheless it is a democracy. And one of the hallmarks for assessing that democracy is freedom of speech, and the fact that you can sit here and criticize the government and be quite, forceful in your criticism, forthright, that is a manifestation of at least a measure of democracy.
Charles, I can tell you that even me is being harassed every day. There's no freedom of speech. And you know that yourself, Charles. And I can tell you, and there's so many people who are being detained in one place or the other because they've made one statement or anything.
Well, I haven't been harassed, to be fair. But
yes, maybe you've not been, but I've been.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So I can tell you that even that doesn't exist. But we're not, when you say, yes, he exists, Charles, when you go for an exam and you score 10%, it's a fail. I'm just giving you the real measure of democracy. We failed in all of them. So it doesn't exist.
So having expressed this alarm, what do you anticipate to be the negative consequences of that threat to democracy that you talk about? What track is Nigeria heading towards as a result, and how damaging might that be? And how would you suggest Nigerians go about counteracting that?
Well, for me, we're headed, you know where we're headed. It will get worse. And when it gets worse, we're now going to threaten to a state of nature, of anarchy, where anybody can do anything you want. Everything is collapsing. Even when the people who are supposed to be seeing it are not seeing it. But you can see the negative impact in all the critical areas, even the education you mentioned, when you said people are being given scholarship to go to school.
Student loans.
Student loans. What is happening at universities, Charles? Our universities now are politicized, where appointments for management of universities are now political. You now fail local government election, you're appointed on your university board, university governing board, where vice chancellors have even been appointed without merits and everything. And the consequences that you see universities now giving honorary degree to all manner of character of people. So even that is deteriorating.
His aides, and again, we have to balance the discussion, deny that there is any such threat to democracy. They say you are pulling the trigger on a non-existent gun and creating an unnecessary level of uncertainty where there is none. I wonder what your reaction is to that.
Charles, I said go to the people. It is not about me. I'm one with the people. They can say anything they like. You know, when you are in government, you claim anything. But I deal with the reality. The reality is that things are headed south. Go and check all indices of development anywhere. I've told you what is improving. Is our literacy level improving? Is our health condition improving? Even them that are in government don't even go to hospitals here. So that shows that it's not even improving. The same thing goes. Are people being pulled out of poverty? There's still hunger everywhere. Is the agricultural produce increasing? Is manufacturing increasing? No. So where is it?
So in the context of this high uncertainty with regard to democracy and the rule of law that you talk about, that suggests unpredictability and, you know, especially for international investors, which is something they do not like. They don't like unpredictability. They don't like the lack of the rule of law, because obviously it threatens their investments. And ultimately that has an impact from what you're saying on the economy, doesn't it?
That's it. Charles, the first thing you can say that you have a government is security of life and property, rule of law. These are intangible assets that you cannot ignore. It is critical. People go where there's law and order. Nobody goes where there's chaos. Where do you see the rule of law? You are here. You don't need to. I don't need anybody to tell you. You see it every day.
Well, all this talk about democracy and the rule of law leads me inevitably to what you talked about previously, which is Rivers State. I'm sure you've been seeing the rising political temperature there over the past few months, which has heightened with considerable tension. But was it enough for a state of emergency to be declared?
Capital no. You cannot, Charles, take the action that have been taken in Rivers State for what happened. There's a clear path to dealing with that issue. Rivers State, for the past 2 years, have become ungovernable for obvious political reasons and interests, which shouldn't be in a democratic environment. It's clear, it shouldn't be. I have been a governor, and I have left government, had issue with the person who would have replaced me, with my successor. But for God's sake, the state is far more important than anybody. We have a governor who have been sworn in as the governor. It should be allowed to govern.
So what is your sense of what is behind that presidential declaration? Does it all seem straightforward, or do you detect a sleight of hand there? I mean, we heard a few days ago the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, alleging that President Tinubu's emergency rule in Rivers State is a tactic to intimidate governors who might not support the president in 2027. Is that a bit far-fetched, or do you subscribe to that school of thought?
Well, for me, what happened in Rivers State is very unfortunate and is impacting very negatively to the little or remaining inkling or democratic space we had. He eroded a lot from there. So, as for intimidating the governors for 2027, it shouldn't be. The governors are going to seek re-election. You're going to seek re-election. You're going to seek re-election based on what you've been able to do, your performance. On Nigerians, the governors just have one vote. It is because of what I told you that it is not a democratic country that you are trying to intimidate the governors.
So you believe that that's what he's trying to do?
If that is what I'm just telling you, if that is what he's trying to do,
right,
it's because it's not a democratic setting.
But is it what he's trying to do?
I believe so. I believe so.
And of course, the manner in which the National Assembly, you touched on this briefly earlier, approved that state of emergency with a voice vote is continuing to cause ripples across Nigeria and beyond. Do you agree or disagree with those who say that trust and confidence in the National Assembly has been eroded as a result?
Completely eroded. Very unfortunate. That's why I said there's no functional legislature. It's not there. Our political setting doesn't exist in any democratic environment.
Okay, let me ask you to hold your thoughts there. Let's take a very short break and we will continue with this very interesting conversation, but to give you a minute to get a sip of water so that we can continue this chat. You're watching Arise Prime Time, plenty more still ahead as we continue our exclusive chat with the 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi. Stay with us. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Tonight, the redoubtable and some say relatable Peter Obi, the man who was able to galvanize a wide base of voters across this country that feel stifled by what they see as the bad governance of the two main parties, the APC and the PDP, and the economic crisis that they've plunged the country into. Mr. Obi, they say, gave them the opportunity to say enough is enough. But the APC managed to beat back that challenge, but only barely. And as the next election cycle approaches in 2027, with the economy still limping and President Tinubu looking Janus-faced to many Nigerians with a growing authoritarian side, many believe that his ruling APC party is once again looking vulnerable. And the collective opposition are sensing a moment that is emboldening them. But can they cross the inflection point and turn it into the political tsunami needed to tip the balance in their favor in 2027? And Mr. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, is still with me in the Arise studio. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. You were talking just before we went on a break about what was happening in Rivers State, the state of emergency that was declared. You said it was unconstitutional, and you felt that the legislature, the National Assembly, had failed in its constitutional duty to checkmate that move. Were you struck by what appeared to be the absence of opposition voices in that process? I mean, you have Labour lawmakers in the National Assembly. You are a Labour man, Labour presidential candidate in 2023. And we didn't really hear much from them in opposition, did we? In spite of your very loud and unequivocal call for the state of emergency to be rejected. I mean, how much does that suggest that not only is the opposition, the Labour Party, very weak, but that you were unable to exert any influence on them?
Charles, before I go into the opposition, there were, even in the House of Representatives, a particular Labour member did everything possible to ensure that the right thing was done by ensuring that it is not a voice vote, that is a vote that must be properly recorded.
Yeah, you're talking about Obi Agwocha, who
Yes,
stood up, but that
yes,
was a solitary voice.
That's what I'm saying.
Why didn't we hear more voices?
At least it's from Labour, because you said no opposition. At least from Labour, at least, and there were others like that. They were shouted down. Even at the Senate, there were voices like that, like former governor of Bayelsa State, former governor of Sokoto State. There were voices.
Yeah, but they were not Labour.
No. But they said opposition.
Yeah.
But in
Fair
general,
enough.
the Nigerian political space was designed not to have opposition. Opposition doesn't exist here, Charles. If you want to look at where opposition exists, you compare us with other countries with similar trajectory. People have called me and said, look at what the oppositions are doing in South Africa. Look at what the oppositions are doing in other similar countries. But let's just use South Africa, which is, of course, the biggest economy in Africa today. And what they are doing, they have presidential system, but have been able to have a system that allows opposition to exist in their system. You cannot have opposition that is effective unless you have proportional representation in the legislature. If you don't have it, you're wasting your time. If you look at South Africa today, as it is, just check their election. In 2019, ANC won 57.7% of the vote. They had 230 members. 2019, they had 40%. They had 160 members. While Democratic Alliance in 2019 had 20%, they had 80 people. In 2024, they had 21 plus, almost 22, they had 87 members. And that is the same thing for all other parties. And their leader is a member of that parliament. And you cannot cross from one party to the other, as you can do in Nigeria, without consequences. Once you cross from one party to the other, you lose your seat. Just even in the environment you know very well, the UK, you cannot have somebody from one party cross over to the other party without any consequence, without anything, and all that. So you have a system that works. And nobody's going to lure your member using contract, using this and all that, as is happening here. So it's a difficult thing. That's why we are clamoring that we must now change this constitution. We must now build a viable system. People have asked me, Peter, what are you going to do if you were there? I will make sure that this country is democratic. I will make sure that the opposition thrives by ensuring that I direct whoever and put all my own resources in terms of office to ensure that parties function the way they should. Today, they don't do that. You just have people doing all sorts of things in terms of, as I said, there's no democracy here. We need to fix it. Yar'Adua started doing it. He was sworn in here as the president, and he said, I will not allow the process through which I came to office to continue. I was a beneficiary of it, Charles. I had a free and fair second-term election. And that's what it should be. But instead of now having it growing the way you think things will be, we've taken 300 degrees reverse.
Well, you made a very interesting point there when you said that if you were to be the president,
yes,
that these were the actions you would take to shore up democracy in Nigeria. So let's talk about the positioning for power in 2027, because that's when, assuming you run for president, you will have another chance to test your popularity in Nigeria. Lots of reports about realignments and various political groups and individuals said to be coming together to wrest power from the APC. How much are you in that mix?
Charles, I'm one person who is very reluctant at talking about 2027. I'll just probably gloss over it. Because we have a critical situation, Charles, where we're not addressing it. We have a country where our debt in 2015 is between 15 and 17 trillion. Now we have a country with a debt of 150 to 170 trillion. A country where our cost of debt servicing is now higher than critical areas of budget for critical development, education, health, pulling people out of poverty. And we are discussing 2027. Just let's stay with what is happening today.
Yeah, but the fact is that you are discussing 2027.
I am part of it. I do all I'd say, and that's what I'm going to say now, is that whatever realignments, whatever coming together, we must discuss the future of this country. We're not just going to, I'm not going to be part of just wrestling power for power's sake. No. I want to know that we're going to do this in order to be able to invest in education, invest in health, invest in pulling our people out of poverty. How can a country with this size of uncultivated land not be able to feed itself?
Well, let me stay with that point of 2027. The reason is purely because it is enormously important, because those who support you, they want to see some sense of direction about what's going to happen next and whether or not you're going to try to realize that ambition again. I mean, some prominent opposition politicians have suggested that you should abandon your ambition of contesting the next presidential election and team up with Atiku Abubakar again as his deputy.
Which prominent politicians?
With an agreement. Well, I'm not going to mention names, but I mean, quite a number of them have suggested that you should team up with Atiku Abubakar as his deputy with an agreement that after one term he will work to make you president. They say that without this alliance, both you and Atiku will lose in 2027. What is your reaction to that?
Charles, elections are won, elections are lost by the vote of the people. All these things you're talking and all these things people are talking is because we are not democratic. Charles, we are talking of working together for the sake of the country, not because of political posts. I've said it before.
But if you don't have political power, you won't be able to change the country.
Charles, I agree with that. That's why I've always said, I'm not desperate to be president. I'm desperate to see Nigeria work. Charles, it is all these alliances, all these groupings that brought us to where we are today. Because people were blinded. Instead of seeing what they would do to make the country work, make the country productive, they were focused on wrestling power. What are we going to use the power to do?
Yeah, but you ran for office in 2023. You wanted to wrest power from
Yes,
the
because
APC.
I wanted to do something.
Right.
Charles, I wanted to do something. I wanted to use it. By now, you would have been seeing the impact on education visibly. And I'm not talking about people coming to say it in TVs. You will be seeing it visibly. I would have even been visiting the schools.
Well, that's why some of
the health. You would have been seeing the primary. We have over 70% of our primary care are not functional.
But that's why some of your supporters are saying that for you to make this happen, you have to be able, you've got to be positioned, they say, to win the presidency.
Don't say my support. Don't just say some of my followers. I want Nigerians to know it is about their country.
Indeed.
So many Nigerians today don't know where the next meal will come from. They don't know. Several people have been to hospitals where people can't leave the hospitals because they can't pay. We have less than 5% insurance, health insurance in this country, when comparable countries like Indonesia have 95%.
Yes, but you're not going to be able to change that unless you become president.
No, but the people have to know and know that this man can do it.
Well, the argument is that even if you win in 2027, you'll be forced or prevailed upon to hand over to the North after just one term in 2031, which will not be enough for you to fulfill these let me just make the point, these electoral promises. Whereas if you worked with a one-term Northern presidency in 2027, you'd be more likely to scale through in 2031, assuming the North keeps to the agreement. Does that sound like a reasonable proposal to you? Because you mentioned Yar'Adua, who came into office. He had to come into office before he started trying to change things.
Charles, the president that is there today, how many years has he stayed? 2 years. and you could see where we are. Look at the turn of things in 2 years. That means that you can change things in 2 years. If I was there in 2 years, Charles, that you would have seen considerable change. In critical areas, I would have tackled corruption head on. I would have reduced cost of governance. And you will see it. People will feel it. And those monies invested in critical areas. Our primary health care today, I told you, 70% are not functional. And we spent over 35 billion in conference center. Which conference? Who is coming for the conference? You need to invest your money properly. Just you have been seeing borrowed money invested in critical area. We, a country in Bangladesh, with 148,000 square kilometers of land, is producing about 60 million metric tons of rice. And us, with over 6 times that size of land, cannot do 10% of that. Charles, there's room here. You talked about devaluation of Naira. There's nothing wrong in devaluation. I would have done something. I would have allowed the Naira to float. But I would have done it in an organized manner. There will be productivity. The idea of devaluing your currency, allowing it to float, to be cheaper, is that you have productivity so you can export, so people can come and buy. But when you don't have productivity and you devalue your currency, it's double whammy because you have nothing to sell. So I would have injected money in productivity. Today, nobody is producing anything. Somebody told me a few days ago, say, oh, they've removed there's no more tax or this, or some of the manufacturing inputs and everything. And all. I said, no. How can you manufacture? How can you do business when your interest rate is over 40%? Yeah, one of the biggest costs of manufacturing today, cost of production today, is interest rate. Just nobody borrows money at over 40% to do a business that is shared. You can only borrow, it's only government that is borrowing that amount of money at that cost. So you need to do the right things, and you can do it.
So what would be the thrust of your attack then on President Tinubu in 2027 that might tip the balance in your favor? I mean, you've talked about, the economy, you've talked about democracy, the rule of law, which you say suffered a setback. Given all that, what would be your strategy to erode confidence in the president and convince the Nigerian people to go with you rather than him?
It is not enough that your aides are running around. You, who is the main person, have to have an idea, be competent, have the capacity, have the compassion, the energy to do the job. It is not something you can lease out. Governance, leadership, is not something you can just hire somebody else to do for you. You are the leader. You should be the one. Answerable to the people, doing the right things. You're the chief person, and you should be in charge. We have too much of delegated responsibility here. That shouldn't be.
Very briefly, because we're fast running out of time, we've got less than 5 minutes now. Are you going to stick with the Labour Party, given the disarray that's in the party?
The disarray is caused by government.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter who caused
No, that's what I'm telling you. Yes.
Are you going to stick
I'm in Labour Party.
And are you going to stick with the Labour
Well, I'm there because I'm there. It's not something I can tell you now. I'm there today. And as time go on, Charles, if it changes, I'll tell you. But I'm a member of Labour Party. And these are one of the things I said I will do. I will make sure that parties work. I will protect democracy and make it work.
Some would say Labour Party isn't working under you.
No, it has nothing to do under me. I'm not the one running the party. I've been involved in all this. If government today is democratic and they want democracy to thrive, all these things will work.
Right.
Put me anywhere.
So you can only make the change if you're president.
I've told you, Charles, I saw this we had a problem under Yaradua, for example, in my party. He told it, in front of me, he told the INEC chief, I don't want all these party issues in front of me. I want it to happen, but I don't want all this. So you have to say you're democratic, practice it, believe in it, whether it favors you or not. Because that's what you want. You want to build a better, decent society that is organized.
Right. Okay. We've got a couple of minutes left before we have to go, which is rather sad because I'm enjoying talking with you. Before we go, after what's been clearly a rather depressing discussion about the future of Nigeria, cheer us up with one thing that could make this country look better to the world.
Well, Charles, I wish I can tell you. The only thing I can tell you is that it is what is happening can be turned around with a competent leader that has the capacity and compassion to serve. Because we have low-hanging fruits. There's nothing in following the rule of law. There's nothing in ensuring orderliness. There's nothing in fighting corruption. You know, people say it's difficult. It is not. If you are not involved, you reduce it by 50%. There's nothing in investing in critical areas of development. We're borrowing money, every left, right, and center. Invest that money properly. Tell Nigerians, come out, Charles, leaders come out every day and address their people. I will make sure I address Nigerians at least once every month and tell them what is happening. They want to know. I want to visit the universities and tell them what is happening. I want to tour the states and see for myself what is happening. That's what it should be. We can change it. It's happened before.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed, and we really appreciate the time you've taken to come and talk to us. Mr. Peter Obi is the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, or was the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye and thank you. This week, as Nigerians all across the country mark Democracy Day, no one can deny that the people of this country are living in changing times. Times that are not necessarily changing for the better, but are charged with turbulence. So this Democracy Day anniversary, marking 25 years of democratic governance, seems like a good time to look at where Nigeria is today, with a declining economy, rising crime, pervasive corruption, and the continuing failure of basic services like power, water, and infrastructure. How do we recapture this country from those who are determined to stamp out progress wherever they can? What does democracy look like in Nigeria in 2024 as various parts of this increasingly divided country try to stand up for their democratic rights and to share in the democratic ideals promised by both June 12th and 1999? Can this Democracy Day become the corporate vision that can unite all Nigerians in that vision? I'll be joined in the studio by one politician that many believe could yet be massively consequential in defining Nigeria's political direction, Mr. Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general election. It would not be an exaggeration to say that few contemporary Nigerian politicians have gripped and consumed the imagination of Nigeria's youth quite so intensely as Mr. Obi. I'm Charles Enyegolu, and this is a special Democracy Day edition of Arise Prime Time. So, after a quarter of a century of unbroken democracy, where is Nigeria heading now? Well, if you scratch away the surface of sentiment and political sensibility, what you'll find underneath is deep-seated anxiety. Anxiety about the future of this country as Nigerian politicians continue to punish the people with years of failing governments, whilst remaining unchastened by their own flops, even as they push the people towards the razor's edge in an atmosphere of rumbling, rivalrous hostility. We know what Nigeria was in transition from in 1999, military dictatorship. But what is it in transition to today, amid so much poverty, insecurity, and fear? Are we witnessing the strengthening or the weakening of the democratizing experiment in post-military rule Nigeria? What are the political consequences of the absence of the dividends of democracy and the presence of the degree of destitution that Nigerians are experiencing 25 years after the return of democracy?
I understand the economic difficulties we face as a nation right now. Our economy has been in desperate need of reform for decades. It has been unbalanced because it was built on the flawed foundations and over-reliance on revenue from exploitation of oil. The reforms we have initiated are intended to create a stronger, better foundation for future growth. There is no doubt that the reform has occasioned hardship. I feel your pains. Yet, there are necessary repairs required to fix the economy over the long run so that everyone has access to economic opportunity, fair pay, and compensation for its endeavor and labor. As we continue to reform the economy, I shall always listen to the people and will never turn my back on you.
President Tinubu there delivering his Democracy Day address. Well, today we put the big issues at the heart of the debate to Mr. Peter Obi: the evolution of democracy, the economy, the rising cost of living, insecurity, President Tinubu's 1 year in office, whether the opposition parties are on the cusp of a merger, and the odyssey of unhushed arguments between a coterie of splinter groups within his Labour Party. As Nigeria marks this silver anniversary, is there a silver lining for Mr. Obi himself and for Nigerians? Or does it portend a cataclysmically black cloud? And Peter Obi joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
And happy Democracy Day.
Thank you.
You've been away from television for a while. You've been making very few comments about a lot of things that have been happening. Why is that?
Well, just following up. I'm making sure that other people make the comments and I listen, because part of leadership is also listening and learning. And that's what has been happening. I've also been contributing a bit of mine.
Indeed. This week, of course, Democracy Day, it's being marked this week here in Nigeria. How concerned are you that democracy in this country remains extremely fragile, and some would say in peril, after a quarter of a century?
Well, for me, that was part of my comments today, because you said I tweeted today. The question is, the fundamental question to ask today is to ask, are we truly democratic? Unexamined life is not worth living. You must at any step try to examine what we are doing. After 25 years of experimenting and trying to be a democratic country, it is now time to ask question, are we truly democratic? And you start by defining what it's supposed to be. Democracy is supposed to be government of the people, by the people, for the people. So the fundamental question, is this government of the people? Is it by the people? And is it for the people? Beneath this is supposed to be a benefit for the people, which is not there today. Absence of which have led to leadership failure over the years. That brought massive corruption, hunger, sufferings, all sorts of pain, insecurity, everything. So the opposite is what we've experienced. What we should actually be celebrating is a sort of state capture, where those who have captured it have cornered all the benefits that are meant for the people. All the people are supposed to see in terms of good education, good health, and pulling them out of poverty, have been cornered by the few that have captured the system. And they continue at the suffering at the expense of all. And the list is endless. You can go there and see the measure of democracy. We are 4.23, which shows we're low. You look at the hunger index, we're 109 over 124 countries measured, which shows we're low. You look at corruption index, we're 145 over 180, which shows we're low. You look at law and order, which is supposed to be an intangible asset that drives democracy. We're very low. We're 120 over countries measured. So you could see we're low in every facet. If you compare even the electioneering process that brings our leaders into office, again, we're very low. Let's just take the recent 3 elections in comparable countries of South Africa, India, Mexico. In all these 3 countries, first is that over 60% of registered voters participated in voting. Polling booths opened, over 80% opened on time and closed on time without incidents, no ballot snatching, no this and everything. And results were transmitted electronically without any hitches, no glitches, nothing.
Well, there was a slight hitch in the South African transmission, but not to the degree.
No,
that,
it
that
didn't
we had
affect
in
the
Nigeria.
result because every party accepted it. It was a very minor thing. I watched it sitting down in my own sitting room from beginning to the end. India, that was supposed to have over, the people that voted in India are 3 times Nigerian population, yet you could see it. The election was accepted. In our own case, less than 25% of the voters participated.
And indeed, those who came out, many of them were prevented from
Thank
voting.
you. At the polling booths, did not open on time, closed late, closed early, with all sorts of fraud and everything. And when you think about it, in these countries I mentioned, these were carried out by ordinary citizens. In our own case, despite all this fraud, glitches, everything, it was being executed by professors. So there must be something we need to re-examine and ask ourselves question, how do we get it right? For our children, for the future generation, we can't continue on this path.
So how do we get it right?
By doing it rightly. The government can stamp and say, I recall late President Yaradua, who's admitted that the process that brought him to office is faulty. And he was bent on changing it and putting the right steps to do that.
So do you think
which was followed up by Jonathan,
right,
and participated in an election where for the first time the ruling party and the president lost the election. Just like you can see in the way I've just told you, the ANC in South Africa had a reduced position. In India, the same thing happened. They accepted it.
So do you think that the reason for this problem that you've identified is politicians in power consciously refusing to give those institutions the latitude to operate?
Exactly. And making sure it happened. Institutions must be respected by those in office. They must make sure for the future of the society, for the future of our children, a leader or those who are in leadership must do things rightly.
So in that regard, when you look at the highest office in this country, an office that you aspire to, what do you see? Do you see an individual that respects or does not respect the rule of law, and who through his actions and those of his deputies and possibly ruling party supports or does not support the fabric of this country's democracy?
Charles, I leave this. You can ask ordinary Nigerians.
Well, I'm asking you.
I don't think they do. No. They don't. That's why it's happening. If they do, it won't happen.
You do recognize, though, that a lot of the people who are in power have inherited decades of rot, and you can't wave a magic wand and all that rot will disappear.
Charles, I don't like discussing yesterday. No matter where you start, if you mean well, you can start correcting them. The role of a leader is not to remind people of the past or mention the past or think about the past. Your role is to show the path by doing things that are right. Change starts from you. By you, if you decide to walk the right path, that's how it starts. You can decide, okay, yesterday it was wrong. That's even part of why we hired you. Because it was wrong yesterday, we didn't hire you to remind us or start giving us the excuse, but to show the solution and how best to do it. That is leadership.
So in that respect, after 25 years of unbroken democracy, which Nigeria is marking this week, are we walking on the edge of a razor blade, as someone put it? Are you pessimistic or optimistic?
Very, very pessimistic. We're actually walking in the right direction.
In the right direction?
In the wrong direction.
In the wrong direction.
We're actually walking in the wrong direction.
Right.
Very wrong direction. And we need to change it and walk in the right direction. And it has to start from the number one person.
Well, let's assess that walking in the right direction or wrong direction and that number one person. Let's turn to President Tinubu's first year anniversary. After 1 year in office, do you think he has displayed the strength and the ability to tackle Nigeria's many problems? Are you impressed with mega projects, for example, like the Lagos-Calabar Highway?
Well, you know, I've never made comment about 1 year in office. The reason why is simple. I would say that President Tinubu have kept to his campaign promises. Throughout the campaign, he consistently maintained that he will continue from where Buhari stopped. And that is done very well. I would say excellent. I'll give him excellent pass mark. And it's very simple. Dollar was 460, it's now 1,005. Fuel was 238, it's now about 700. Diesel was 844, it's now 1,415. A bag of rice is 35,000, is now about 80. A bag of beans was similar, 35, is now about 90. Gari was 27.28, is now 49.50. A tuber of yam was about 2,007 to 3,000, now is over 10,000. Tomato basket is about 40,000, that is over 150,000. Electricity is 66 kilowatts, is now over 200. You can go on and on. Our debts, even bread, which is a basic thing, other countries are subsidized, like Egypt. Bread, smaller, medium bread was 450 naira. It's not 900 naira. The big one is 900, it's 1,005. Our debt, like I mentioned, was 87. By end of last year, it was actually 97. The highest we've done within that short period. Now it's over 100 trillion. In fact, this year alone, the government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, have issued and taken from the system borrowing of over 16 trillion naira. You can imagine the interest at almost 20%. It's about 3.2 trillion after 12 months. At that, last year, in a period of 9 months, we spent about 5.7 trillion servicing as debt interest on our payments. So add that. So overall, you've done well. Let's even go back to the overall of the economy. By the time he took over last year, we were still the biggest economy in Africa, with $477 billion as our GDP, followed by South Africa, Egypt, Algeria, and Morocco. Today, we are number 4. South Africa is number 1 now, I think about $373 billion. Egypt is second, $347 billion, followed by Algeria, 266. And we are now 252 billion GDP economy. It's even worse when you go to our per capita. We are actually 1/4 of per capita of the list of these nations that I mentioned. South Africa is over 6,000 per capita. Egypt is 4,000 plus. So is Algeria. And then Morocco, which among this is supposed to be the 5th, at 4,210, and we are 1,000 plus. So we actually are going low. We're coming from a low of per capita of 3,000 plus in 2014. So with every other thing have headed south. You see, insecurity is worsened. Well, corruption has worsened. Adherence to the rule of law has worsened. The country has been nepotism is at the highest.
Let's look at one issue that you mentioned, and you came up with quite voluble statistics there, and that is the issue of the economy. The president, in the clip we played earlier, before our interview began, made it clear that he was aware of the fact that there would be pain before gain. I mean, if you look at every economy, from Argentina to all the ones that have tried to reform their economies, there's always a bit of pain before the gain comes. That comes with putting in reforms, fundamental reforms that would eventually lead to an improvement in the economy. What I'm curious to know is, if you had become president, how difficult would it have been to govern in the current environment? Because you would have inherited essentially what President Buhari left for you to inherit. Because some have argued that whoever took over from President Buhari would have inherited a country that would have been very difficult to fix, with so much borrowing and debt and corruption and the fall in, you know, the currency and all the rest of it. Yes, you could argue that the government, that was part of what they said were their reforms. But in other words, you would not have been able to turn things around and deliver in 1 year.
Charles, the first thing you do as a leader who inherited a difficult situation is to lead by example. And it starts by your own style, by your behavior, your conduct, how you manage the resources. You cannot say that things are difficult when you're living in conspicuous consumption. The things you don't do. Nigeria today is a country with the highest amount of people without homes. Over 24 million. Yet, you're spending 20-something billion to build a house for one person. Mr. Johnson, you're saying that a vice president of Nigeria cannot live in a 4-bedroom house. You live in the UK. 10 Downing Street is 3 rooms. That is an economy that is almost 10 times our economy today. And the Prime Minister lives in 3 rooms. So that's where you start. You start by living like somebody who is coming through difficulty, who is facing difficulty, who wants to change things. That's how we do it. You don't engage in what we've been doing, buying vehicles, partying and everything, as if things are normal. When you say there's difficulty, you need to deal with the issue of cutting the cost of governance. That's where you start. So you need to deal with the issue of massive corruption. That is showing that I am now, okay, things are bad. Just have solved the system. Where I came in and found that things are bad, I will start by cutting the cost of governance.
So is that what you'd like to see him address? I mean, the first year is gone. You know, that's a fact. But he's now entering his second year. Or he has entered. What are the things that
you have to also show a clear plan. It is not enough to say, oh, we are going to go through problem. If we are going to go through problem, this is very simple. You enter a plane. There's a bad weather. There's going to be a turbulence. The pilot says, we're going to go through bad weather. It's going to take us maybe 1 hour, 2 hours because of this. And he follows it through. That is not the time. In that bad weather, everybody, even the crew, are asked to sit down. That's not time to start serving food and wine and everything when everything is up and down. That's why we're there. We're in turbulence and people are still dancing and everything. I always say what happened to the Titanic is what is happening in Nigeria. While the plane was going on, the people on the upper deck were busy dancing until the whole thing collapsed. That's what is happening now. We should change and do things rightly. We can change and manage corruption and everything and all that.
Well, hopefully the people in power and in the know are listening to you. But let me move away from President Tinubu and come to you. In terms of the candidates who will potentially challenge President Tinubu in 2027, and you certainly sound like one of them, and how voters rate them with regard to how fit for the job they are, I am quite sure that many people will say that you obviously stand out. But do you think that your public standing has grown or diminished since the 2023 election?
Charles, I don't know. It's only the public that will know.
Yeah, but you interact with them.
Mine is to continue interacting and being part of the process of building a new Nigeria that is possible. Because we can't go on this way. We're headed to a disaster. We must do things rightly. Like I always said, I'm not desperate to be president. I'm desperate to see Nigeria work. And work for the poor people of Nigeria.
Right.
The system has been very uncaring for the people of Nigeria. And we must fix it. Work where we have to remove this criminalized system, corruption that we the politicians have unleashed on the country and make it better.
Right. Well, you said that we should go and ask the public
Yes.
about their assessment of your public standing, whether it's grown or diminished. Well, one man who is a member of the public, in a manner of speaking, who seems to think that your standing has diminished is the Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka. He recently attacked you, saying that you are unfit to govern Nigeria. What's your reaction to that?
Well, quite frankly, I will not make a comment to that. Wole Soyinka is the father. I have a policy. I don't respond when my fathers talk.
Yeah, but he's delivered a
I
punch.
leave it to them, because when I became their age, I want those younger ones to respect me, though I will also try to put myself in such a position that I will respect myself before that.
Well, he's
But
delivered.
I assure you,
Right.
one of the things he made is that he talked about the obedience.
Yeah.
Me inciting them. Charles, I will never, knowingly, and I have never, knowingly or knowingly, asked any of the obedience or the young people to say anything against an elder, a priest, a pastor, an imam, and everything. Never. It will never happen.
Nevertheless,
never will happen. And I don't make comments when they make comments.
Right.
It is left for Nigerians to know whether I'm fit or not. I've been a successful businessman in the private sector. I've been in the corporate world and can say I'm one of the most successful. I've also served the state where I still challenge all those who have served. Let's put our records side by side and let me know. And when I served, the only measure of development was Millennium Development Goals, which I started 7 years after. When it ended, I was number one.
Yeah, well, I'm going to come to that in a minute, but I just want to finish, because we're going to talk about the state, how you were governor of Anambra State. But just returning to Wole Soyinka briefly, you said you've never incited people against him or anyone else.
I will never do it to anybody.
But does he have a point when he says that by not controlling, or at least trying to control, the online trolls who he says are obedience, that are responsible for the insults directed at him, that you are tacitly encouraging such behavior?
No human being on earth that I know today have controlled online
Trolls.
Nobody. Go and see what they write about me. It's even worse than what they write about him. Go and read it. You can Google it. You can see it.
Well,
It's
I
there.
have seen it.
Yes. So if they do that against me, how do I now control? Who do I know that is doing that? It could actually be those who are his friends, who claim that they are obedience, doing it in order to make him make such statements. But like I said, he remains a revered father.
Okay.
And I respect him, and I'll keep respecting
Right,
him.
let's move on from there. What about the other person who seems to have taken aim at you, and that's the former Director General of your campaign organization, Doyin Okupe. I mean, having supported you in 2023, he now believes that Bola Tinubu is the best of the 2023 presidential candidates. I mean, at the very least, that must hurt. What's your reaction
No,
to
it
that?
doesn't hurt me. It's a personal assessment. It's just personal to him. And like I said, Charles, all these things that happened, I don't want to make comment about them, because what we are talking now is the present position. Is Gary cheaper?
Yeah, but those
It's
kinds of
cheaper of you,
comments
cheaper.
are
No.
damaging to you.
No.
He's saying those things in
If it
public,
will make
and he
Gary,
was your
if it will make
Director
Gary
General.
or Yam cheaper, fine with me.
Right.
If it's going to help in managing the whole corruption we pass into, fine with me. Let's deal with the issues of the president. Whenever people are talking, this person said, Charles, I don't do politics of he said, she said. No. Let's deal with the issues. We have a problem. We have a big problem. Look at what everyone has said. That those who are going to be hungry in Nigeria have increased from 24 million to 37 and something million. We have young people, look at what UNICEF released the other day. So we have bad results all over the place. That's what we should focus, not whether Peter Obi is fit or not. Charles, I'm fit to be a president of Nigeria. I'm competent. I can tell you that put me line by line with other people who are competing in terms of education, in terms of fitness, in terms of background, I can stand tall against them.
Well, you talked about the state, so let me bring one more issue about these sort of personal things before we move on. Let's look at another person who's taken aim at you, and that's the special advisor to the Governor of Anambra State, Dr. Alex Obiobolu. You, of course, governed Anambra State for 8 years, and he says that in 2 years of Charles Soludo as governor, Mr. Soludo has achieved more than your 8 years in office. In other words, 2 years of Soludo is better than 8 years, Obi. What's your response?
Well, again, Charles, I don't like talking about issues like this. But because you mentioned it, let me tell you, Charles, let people go and look at my electoral promises to the people of Anambra State. Education, health, pulling people out of poverty, making sure they have access to rural areas. And I can tell you, they were the measures of MDG, and I was number one. I was number one in education. I was there in health. I was there in pulling people. Go and ask those who ran Office of Poverty Alleviation, like Professor Dr. Mackel and everything. Go and ask Sam Sudin. I was number one. What I promised, I delivered.
I have to be fair. I saw that the evidence of that online.
Thank you.
In terms of those meals, I think the European Union and all the rest.
Everybody.
Of them, the rating was that
above
Anambra
all,
State was number one.
Finished it and was able to even left a savings, subnational savings, for the first time in Nigeria, for future generation. Nobody had ever done that. What I promised, I delivered. My brother, my senior brother, Soludo, promised Dubai, Taiwan. So until Anambra becomes that, because you must stick to what you promise. When Anambra is now Dubai, Taiwan, he has achieved his purpose. I didn't promise that. What I promised, I delivered. And that's what I'm thinking about, what I'm talking. When I was talking about being president, I was saying things that is deliverable. That I'm going to do this in the north. We're going to make sure we'll go to the north and turn around the uncultivated land, do this. I wasn't really, I had what I wanted to do, and I would have started from day one and showed the direction. That's how it works.
Let's turn to the other debate that's going on at the moment about the future of the Labour Party, because in a sense there appears to be a parallel there to the issue that Professor Soyinka was talking about, which is the issue of non-intervention on your part. We don't seem to be hearing of you intervening to sort out what to the public appears to be very toxic divisions within the Labour Party.
No, there's no toxic division within the Labour Party. That I can tell you. And I'm intervening. Charles, when fathers intervene in their family, it is not a public affair. I'm a leader in Labour Party, and we're talking. And I assure you that whatever is in problem or crisis in Labour Party is not up to 10% of what happened in other parties. And we will resolve it. And do so amicably.
Right. Nevertheless, there appears to be, I mean, you said you're doing it privately.
No, we're doing that. We're doing it.
But there are a lot of people in the Labour Party who are doing theirs publicly. And in that context, there appears to be an extraordinary realignment taking place within the Labour Party. At the outset, it was Mr. Papa and Mr. Arabambi and all the rest of it taking aim at Julius Abure, the chairman of the Labour Party, accusing him of forgery, fraud, and all the rest of it. And now they've realigned themselves and are now publicly saying that they are working together against you and the obedient movement. What is actually going on there? I mean, it suggests a party in absolute tatters. They're
not working against me, I can tell you. Nobody. They're not working against me.
But that's what they said.
You know, some elements try to say that. If you want to know, wherever Labour Party is doing anything, come out and you see who they will announce as the leader. And you will see it in the coming days, where we'll go out in certain functions. I've never been in any function where somebody said, we're working against this man. No.
Well, they may not say it directly to your face, but they're saying it in public.
No, it's that same thing. We're talking about people saying things that are not reality. That same thing. People can say it, but when Labour is doing something, when I appear, you will see who is the leader. Simple.
Do you, though, intend to remain in the Labour Party, given, at least from the way it looks to the public, how impossibly difficult it seems to resolve the conflicts within the party?
No, we don't have that. We don't have that type of conflict you're mentioning. People are just exaggerating what is there. I'm a faithful member of Labour Party.
Right.
And we, like I always say,
so you remain a member?
I remain there. I remain there.
Right.
I remain there. I'm a member of Labour Party. If for any reason, like I said, if we're going to move forward,
right,
and there's other groups that are going to work with us, we'll work with them.
Right. Okay. Well, that brings me to the issue of possible mergers and alliances. Has there been some communication between you and the other leading opposition candidates, parties, about a possible merger or alliance ahead of 2027? Any deal in the offing, or there hasn't been and there won't be?
There's no deal. But I wish and hope there will be. We need to look for like minds who are now committed to saving this country.
But are you working towards a deal?
Well, like you said, we're all trying to put ourselves together,
right,
and explore all those opportunities.
So you are talking about a possible merger then?
Not that we have started it, but that's what part of what we're considering.
Right. But are you considering that in isolation or in
No,
communication?
the party, with the party, everybody
right,
looking at it.
Right. So at the moment, there's nothing to report?
No,
right,
nothing to report. Of course, the public will see that, will go ahead.
Right. But would you like to see a merger?
I want the like minds and those who can see that we are in difficulty to come together and save this country for the future of our children.
Okay, well, let's move away from that, because obviously there's nothing to report. You've talked a lot about governance on different levels. You've got the federal level, obviously the state level, local government, and so on. Let's talk about the state level, which is a very important level. I wonder whether you might be able to tell us whether there's any governor you feel, because you assessed President Tinubu's 1 year in office. Let's assess it on the state level. Is there any governor you feel has had a good first year in office amongst the current crop of governors?
Of course, you should see Governor Oti what he's doing.
Well, he's your Labour Party,
No,
people would say you would say that.
No, it's about the people. Forget about whether it's in Labour Party or not. You go to the people. Whenever I do assessment about governance, I talk to the people. I talk to people from Abia. It is not about anything. You could see it. You got the people feel. The comments of the people. Governance, Charles, is about the people. That's why whenever you ask me questions, I say, go to the people. It's how the people feel. When you ask me about Anambra State, I say, go to the people. Or Charles, I invite you in Anambra State. Let me walk the streets of Anambra State, and you see how the people will tell. Everything that I know that you can use to measure government, while I was in government, the people felt it. I want the best state with road network in this country by Federal Ministry of Works that is supposed to be in opposition. So I can go on and tell you what we were able to do. So for me, it is the people of Abia that I'm listening to. And there's other governors, of course, that are doing their best. Maybe they're not in their first year, but definitely he stands out.
Yeah, but what about the other governors? You said there were others.
No, I'm sure.
Because a lot of people will say, yes, okay,
there'll
Labour
be
Party
other,
will say that.
I read. These are based on what I read.
Right.
I used to tell people that, considering what is happening, say, in Boronu, that I see the governor, there's Zulum, trying to contain the insecurity. And at times, take it on first hand and everything. So quite frankly, it's for me to assess the other states. I didn't go assessing them. Now I'm at point where I'm going to look at what is happening in different states and ask questions from the people. But I don't make comment unless it's from the people.
Right, I understand that. Now, you mentioned state capture at the beginning of our chat.
Which is huge corruption.
Yes,
and everything.
and you used the example of elections that have taken place in South Africa, Mexico, India, where the Electoral Commission is seen to be independent and has done the job that they were charged with doing. What would you do with the Electoral Commission in Nigeria?
Satan insists that they do their work independently and that democracy is what it should be if I have the opportunity. Charles, I've served as a governor. I never interfered with any institution. Go and ask those who were in the judiciary while I was there. Not one day did I interfere. Go and ask those who were in education like university. Not one day. Go and ask the police, the army, all security, whether there's one day Peter Obi said, go and arrest this person or do this is wrong. In fact, when I was doing my second tenure, go and ask the security people that came to meet me, INEC, DSS, police, army, they came to meet me. And I told them, all I want is let all my votes be my vote. I don't want one extra vote that is not for me. And I don't want one of mine to be. Go ask anybody. My second
but if you say that
it was free and fair.
But if you say that
I insisted.
If you say that the Electoral Commission is corrupt,
yes,
then the possibility of them being manipulated as a result of your non-interference remains.
No.
And so
no,
people
if they know,
they'd want you to interfere to reform the system.
If they know that you're strict and you're going to do the right thing, just like I always say about corruption, that if the number one, number two, whether governor or president decides to stop it and is not involved, his children and family are not wife are not involved, that you reduce it by over 50%. If you decide to do the right thing and order for the right thing, it will be done.
So is your message more confident today after the 2023 presidential election, or is that something that needs to pick up?
Well, for me, it's a continuation. We'll continue to deliver the same message, insisting that we can't have a country that is criminalized as it is today, where I've shown you indices of measure of development. Our human development index is low. Our human capital is low. Our health is so low. So what else do you want? Our poverty, where poverty capital is worsening. Our per capita, which you used to measure, which is number one measure, have fallen from a high of 3,000 in 2014 to 1,000 today. Things are worsening. Inflation headed south. Interest rates. So it's not, I'm not trying to make it up. It's the reality.
So in that context, what is your message to the people of Nigeria as they look to you and other politicians for leadership and for hope of a better future?
Well, I'll start with the politicians. It is time for us to have a rethink and think about the poor people of this country. There's so many things that are going wrong. The poor people are suffering. We must now refocus and deal with issues that concern them. There's so many issues that concern poor people which we don't address. I was talking to somebody already about Heritage Bank issue. How dare you allow a situation at this critical time, so many poor people with their little savings have put it in a bank where I'm sure whatever caused them to collapse is came from the elites and possibly the top politicians. And you allow them to lose their savings. They even allow some big people and some big institutions to be able to get their money back and then allow poor people. I know a man whose entire life saving of 80 million is in that bank. He's worked all his life, he's late, his family depends on interest on that money. I know those who put money in community banks, microcredit banks, and all sorts of saving institutions who in turn put it in microcredit, Heritage Bank, and you allow it to collapse. They don't even know where to go to. I live in the village and they're running all over the place, crying. When would this country start caring for the poor? That is the problem we have here. And we must deal with it. When you see this massive corruption going on, if it's not budget padding today, it is undisclosed subsidy payments, it is inflated contracts, and all sorts of things, which we should. So these are issues we need to deal with. These are issues I even want our agencies like EFCC to start dealing with. Not arresting Bobrisky and Obi Kubana, or whatever, Kubana's big chief priest. These are minor issues. We have things that are going wrong. Our speaker, through one of his aides, in April, said we are losing 300 barrels of crude every day. People like Tony Elumele have said we are losing over 50% of our production. But let's speak at that was specific. 300 barrels a day Charles, times 75, which is the minimum you can get today, is $22,500,000. At the rate of 1,005, it's 33,750,000,000 naira every day. Times it with 1 month, is $1,012.5 billion naira, which is about what the 3 tiers of government share every month. That's where I want our agencies who are pursuing people who are corrupt to be. Budget padding in all this area, that's where they should be. Facing it squarely, not arresting Bobrisky because he dressed like a woman and paid about maybe 500 naira. I can assure you that if you call Nigerians today and say, hey, we're going to feed only women in this hunger time, just, I don't know, all men will dress like women and go and collect the food because we're all hungry. We will even have to dress Bobrisky. He wouldn't even know what is in dressing like a woman. It's not easy. The wigs are sold in the market and everything. Everybody will turn into. So these are things we need to fix squarely.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. Mr. Peter Obi is the presidential candidate, or was the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election. And of course, he joins me in the studio for the special Democracy Day chat. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charles, for having me.
That's it for this edition of Arise Primetime. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you.